Okay, it is 8:30, and I'm going to call the meeting of the St. Croix County Board of Supervisors to order at this time. And I would ask everyone to stand, and Tim Sackett will be doing the invocation for us this morning. Tim, go ahead.
Okay, thank you. Good morning. Technology is working. I'm not there in person, but don't worry, I'm fine. My family's fine. We're just always taking these precautions. So thanks again for the opportunity to do this. So we are at the end of the year, and I remember in October when we changed the clocks and somebody asked me, does anybody dare to add 1 hour to the year of 2020? And it's one of those questions like, where are we and what are we doing and how did this happen to us? And now that it's approaching Christmas, I hear this Christmas carol about how darkness was begging for the light to come. That song, Emmanuel, Emmanuel, come visit dark Israel. And so we seem to be in a time of darkness and gloom, and some news is coming about vaccines in a few weeks, and maybe that's some of the light we need for our nation and for our communities. And the Christmas story is full of light. The angels appeared in the sky and filled it with light, and Jesus is called the light of the world. And so I think that's an important idea right now, is to have some light shine in our lives. And when Jesus says that he's the light of the world, I don't look at it as him being a candle in the darkness. I look at him as being airport landing lights in your dark room. So imagine if somebody invaded your house with several million candle watts of light. That's my idea of Jesus being the light of the world. It's not a small, dim glow. It's something that overpowers us. And so with the thought of the end of this year and some hope coming, and hope that we need, and the story of Christmas, and the people of St. Croix County and all your communities looking for some hope and some brighter days. With all that thought, let's pray. Lord God in heaven, Jesus said that he is the light of the world, and you created light. The very first thing you created was light, and not just dim lights, but lights that are brighter than the sun. And that kind of light helps us to be sure that not everything is dark, and whatever darkness there is doesn't last very long. So Lord, we look for this season of the holidays to cheer us up and to bring us that light, and to help us to remember the joy that came to this world. And so for the people in the room at the county board meeting, all the guests and the board members and all of the county staff people, Lord, I pray for a great day, the time together to discuss all of this important business, to share some things of their personal nature, and to share things of importance to the whole county. Lord, I ask that there would be resolution to many things that are hanging around unresolved. But I thank you, Lord, for the diligence and the commitment that the people on the board have made to be there to listen and to discuss the needs of our county, especially at a time when a lot of voices are trying to discourage and encourage the time in which we live. So we thank you for the opportunity to discuss these things and to find answers and to establish good policies and ordinances to help the people. And Lord, we thank you most of all that we have someone like you that we can talk to in our time of need. And we ask this in Jesus' name. Amen.
Okay, well, roll call at this time. Cindy, please.
Ed Schachner,
Present.
Sean Anderson. He's not on, okay. Bob Long,
Present.
Kathy Leaf,
Present.
Cara Cook,
Present.
Tim Hall,
Present.
Paul Burning,
I'm here.
Rick Otino is absent, Bob Fiedler,
Present.
Dave Osnes, Scott Counter,
Present.
Dan Hansen,
Here.
Scotty Yard,
Present.
Greg Telejohn,
Present.
Dave Peterson,
Present.
Paulette Anderson,
Present.
Judy Achterhoff,
Here.
Shelley Tomschick,
Present.
Bill Peavy.
Present.
Currently 2 absent.
Okay, at this time then we'll open up public comment. We'll keep the comments limit to 2 minutes today. And the first one I have here is Lynn Betzel. And question on the ordinance. Apparently we don't answer questions. We do take comments today.
Hi, I was just wondering, can I go for Lynn, Ken? Is that okay, or Dave? I have a comment in there, but she's not quite ready. Can I swap out for Lynn for her public comment? She's going to speak, but she's not quite prepared. Okay, thank you. So my name is Sarah Bachland. My address is 573 Omaha Road. Good morning. These last months have taught me quite a bit about our local government and our community, and I just had a few things on my mind that I wanted to share with you. One in particular, I suppose. As we know, this ordinance has, the proposed and failed ordinance has been of great interest in our community, and I still have concerns that the majority of people that I spoke to never knew about it. And for something that had such an impact on our community, my concern is that, or my my concern is that no one knew about it, and how can we resolve that? I mean, we have Adam as our communications guy, hired in April. Just wondering if part of his job description could include informing the public of things like this, maybe a mailing to each address, each residence, when important topics come up like this. I know that you guys have to post in 3 places per state law, but I don't know if you can consider talking about this in the future as an agenda item. Someone can bring this up, because it is an important thing, I think, and I hope it's important to you. So again, that's all I have, so thank you.
Thank you. Next one I have is Sarah Bachland. Oh, I'm sorry. Okay. And then, so Lynn, is she ready?
Hi, good morning. Thank you. Just a few days ago, we were all here, and the room was packed. We had packed room there and a packed on the hall room as well. And that far room, I just wanted to explain, had some technical difficulties. Chairman Peterson, and missed your instructions of no clapping. So I just wanted to explain why you heard some clapping later in the meeting. They missed those instructions. Some of you may have heard or heard about a sign that was put on the bridge about the vaccine. I don't have the exact quote of the sign, but it said the COVID-19 vaccine is, what did it say? Shoot, is exempt from liability. And that's an attempt to begin to educate our public on the importance of this vaccine. And our dear pastor who spoke, or who shared earlier the prayer, I don't see the vaccine as a light in the future. And if you would like more information about the vaccine, you can check out this website, childrenshealthdefense.org, where you can find other information that could concern you. Please remember the people that were here and that half an hour of public comment. And we really value our Constitution, and we know that you took an oath to uphold the Constitution, and we hope you'll carry that to all of the boards that you're on. And I'd like to end with a quote that Pastor Rick Mannon said just at the very end of his public comment was, "Do not quarantine our Constitution." And I hope you will consider that. Thank you.
Thank you. Rick Men?
Yeah, it's Mannon, Rick Mannon from Wilson, and thank you for the opportunity to speak today. I came here to speak in public, asking you to vote no for the ordinance, and so I wanted to come back today and in public and say thank you for voting the ordinance down, for recognizing that we the people are endowed by our Creator with certain unalienable rights, that among these are life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. And since that is given to us by our Creator, the government can't take it away because the government didn't give it to us. And I'm grateful that God has set up government, and the government, I believe it's your responsibility to follow the will of the people and to make sure that our rights are not being violated. So I wanted to say thank you for that, and I also wanted to thank those of you that emailed me and said you appreciated my comments even though you disagree with me. I just want you to know that as far as I'm concerned, we are not talking about opinions here. We are talking about principles. And so that's why I'm so passionate about what I believe in upholding the Constitution and the Declaration of Independence, which you did by voting no for that ordinance. So thank you for that. But I also wanted to draw your attention to a couple of signs that I have noticed in our county, and they're concerning to me. The first one was on the Quick Trip by where I live on Highway 128 and I-94, and it says it's the local law that face masks are required. So I called the Quick Trip main offices and I said, I'm not sure where this sign came from, but this is not a local law. And so they told me that it was a state law. And again, I argued that it's not a state law either. It's not a law. And our county voted this down. So that was one thing. The other thing is a sign at the Woodville Library, COVID risk level red, tipping point, stay at home orders necessary. And I just want to make the public aware of these signs and not be intimidated by them, and see if you know anything about them. Thank you.
Sarah Blagan?
Hello, good morning. My name is Sarah Blagan. I live in Hammond, and I wanted to bring you some information this morning. Last time I talked about PCR tests, and this morning I wanted to thank Supervisors Long and Fiedler for asking for us to participate maybe in sharing information. And this is actually a fantastic news. I think everybody will be very excited about this. Earlier this year, there was a study done by Dr. Vladimir Zelenko in New York, which studied hydroxychloroquine, which is also called HCQ because it's shorter, zinc, and azithromycin, which is an antibiotic, as early outpatient treatment of COVID. And at the time, it was a theory, or it had been tested in one study, but a few days ago, we got the peer review study of that original study saying that, yes, this is in fact valid. This treatment actually works. I will send a copy of this to everybody. I've highlighted my parts, and I'll send you the highlighted and the plain. Basically, what it said was, with this treatment, there was an 84% reduction in patients needing to be hospitalized. And of the patient groups, the group which had the treatment, there was a 0.7% fatality rate. And this group was treated, or the group that was treated was all high-risk patients. They all had comorbidities, cancer, diabetes, heart conditions, and in the control group where no treatment was presented, that was actually a high and a low risk. So you would assume that the survival rate would be better, and they had a mortality rate of 3.4%. So we can see that we do have some good news. We do have some options, and I guess my request to you is perhaps help work with our local physicians to understand that they do have the option and the opportunity to prescribe something. Thank you.
Is there anyone else who wishes to make public comment? Speak up, stand up at the podium and address your name, please.
My name is Charlene Stoddard. I live in Roberts. I didn't plan to speak today, but again, thank you to everybody who voted no. Thank you for anybody who responded to my emails, which was very few of you. I just wanted to say I watched a couple things yesterday of a woman who grew up in Germany. Part of this thing that I watched was the Ferguson model. Mr. Ferguson is a scientist. This is the model the CDC and the WHO used to shut us all down this spring. I'm just going to read straight from here. To understand why his model was in dire need of peer review, look at how his past models have failed. He has a dismal track record, yet no one checked his model or code. The governments used his flawed data to base their decisions. 2001, Ferguson's model on foot and mouth disease led to the slaughter of millions of cows and sheep, costing 10 billion, whatever their dollars are, and was severely flawed. 2002, he predicted mad cow disease deaths would surpass 150,000. Total deaths were 177. 2005, he claimed 2 million people could die from the bird flu. Fewer than 300 people died worldwide. 2009, Ferguson claimed the swine flu had a fatality rate of 0.3 to 1.5% in the UK. The actual rate was 0.026%. I would also just like to point out that Mr. Ferguson is funded millions of dollars through Bill Gates. Thank you.
Is there anyone else who wishes to make public comment at this time?
Hi, Jen Flanders. I don't have a whole lot to say today, believe it or not. But I would like to ask that the county not, sorry, Adam, but that the county not send out more propaganda. I know that sending out notices and whatever is part of what you're considering. And I just ask that rather than sending out another something that's going to inundate us with wear your mask, wash your hands, stay 6 feet apart, we don't need that. It's everywhere. It is everywhere, including kids' cartoons. It's ridiculous. I would ask that you consider something where you're actually informing the public of ways to build your immune system, and that any flyers or anything that you're putting out from here on out would be naturally encouraging people to build their immune system. And not only that, but offering a way that people can call in and that we can form helpful committees or a task force that would help right now with things like unemployment and people not being able to feed their children. And I believe that some of you were talking about that last time. And there are a number of us that are willing to work on that and are trying to work on that at this time. But something that is just another form of wash your hands and stay away from each other is a waste of our taxpayer money. Thank you.
Anybody else who wishes to make public comment? At this time, I'll close public comment and we'll proceed on with the business items. And first item is the consent agenda. Do I have a motion for that? Supervisor Osnes. Second from Supervisor Long. Discussion? Seeing none, I guess we're ready to vote on that. So all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
And opposed? Carries unanimously. Thank you. Okay, the next item will be a presentation to recognitions, and first we have a recognition of District Attorney Michael Nuskes, and our administrator, acting administrator, will address that. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair Peterson. I just wanted to start by saying I've worked with Mike in the DA's office for a few years now, and personally, I really appreciate Mike. The DA's office has a really crucial role in our judicial system. I really respect the work that the DA's office does, and I come to Mike and I have to tell him he has to approve expense reports in this new ERP system, and I have to go through his budget with him and tell him we're going to cut this line item or that line item. And I appreciate the fact that he's always willing to work with me. He's always very nice and cooperative, and considering the complexity of the rest of his job, the little things that I bring to him, and he can be nice about it. I appreciate that. So that's part of the reason that we want to honor Mike for his service here and for his service elsewhere. So on behalf of the County Board Chair and the County Board, we gratefully recognize District Attorney Michael Nuskes for his 3 decades of public service to Wisconsin, a period marked by his commitment to fairness and understanding of all participants in our justice system. Mike has served as Racine County District Attorney, a Racine County Circuit Court Judge, and for the past 8 years in St. Croix County, first as an Assistant District Attorney and for the past 4 years as the District Attorney. He serves on the Executive Committee of our Community Justice Collaboration Council. His regular presentations to the Public Protection Judiciary Committee provide valuable updates and insights. Mike both runs one of the largest district attorney's offices in western Wisconsin and is an active prosecutor appearing in court regularly. He has prosecuted numerous homicide cases as well as other high-profile cases. Mike should take justified pride in the work he has done to ensure victims' rights, as well as his work with St. Croix County's treatment court and its efforts to provide new opportunities. Mike is also keenly aware of the special needs of veterans, as exemplified in his most recent work to create a veterans diversion program. So we have a small plaque here for Mike, but we want to thank you again for your service and wish you and your wonderful wife, Barb, well as you enter the next phase of your life. Thank you, Mike. This will be here for you somewhere.
Well, just send it up to the office. And I'd like to thank the county board. I really appreciate everybody in the administration, the judges, Judge Needham, Judge Black, Judge Waterman and Nordstrom, and Judge Lindell and Judge Cameron, the 6 judges who have been here during my tenure. The county board and the administration have always been helpful in everything we needed to do, providing us the resources, listening to our needs. St. Croix County is a jewel. It's been a blessing to my wife and myself since we moved here. We, except for some family obligations, we wouldn't be leaving, but that's a different discussion. and I've enjoyed every day that I've walked into the courthouse. And I'm going to regret that my time is coming to the close at the end of the month. I'd like to thank everyone on the board, everyone in judiciary, the law enforcement people for everything they've done to help it. I'm glad I can make some small contribution to what this county is, which is truly a great place for every one of its citizens. I thank you again.
Thank you, Mike. Okay, the next item on the agenda will be the presentation of the COVID-19 communication plan. Ken, are you covering that? And Adam, go ahead.
Thank you, Supervisor Peterson. I'm sharing my screen. Can you see that in the county boardroom?
Yes, we can.
Okay, thank you. So let me jump into slideshow mode here. 1 second. There we go. All right. So I'm going to go through the communication plan. There was, at the last meeting, there was a desire to talk about the communication efforts that we have planned to communicate about COVID-19 with our audiences. So the communication objectives that I'm about to share with you will help us deliver more informative, engaging, and consistent communication to promote the public health and well-being of the people in St. Croix County. As we reach more people with consistent information, our hope is that we will all gain a better understanding of COVID-19, the impact it has on our community, and how we can all work together to keep our family, friends, and neighbors healthy. So first off, I'm going to start by stating who our audience is. So the audience that we will be sending communications to and that we have been sending communications to, so this really hasn't changed, but it is St. Croix County residents, employees, so we do internal messages about internal policy, municipalities, chambers and businesses, local hospitals, and local media. I'd like to start off by looking at what we've done so far. I've worked closely with public health to ensure that we're providing accurate and consistent information about COVID-19 on the St. Croix County website and on our social media. We've developed and shared information about testing, what to do if you test positive or you're a close contact, local data, recommendations for individuals, businesses, and schools, and we continue to develop FAQs based off of common questions that we receive. We've issued press releases. We've sent out letters written by public health. We've posted blog posts. We do regular social media posts, and we've also done presentations and updates for our local communities. So the work that we've done so far has really laid the foundation of how we can grow our communication efforts in the future. The core of our messaging has always been to share local data and promote the safety measures recommended by public health, the Wisconsin Department of Health Services, and the CDC. This core messaging will not change. That's really going to remain the same, but we're going to build on this. And we're going to do that by creating content that is more relatable, more inclusive, and available to a larger audience. So the data, we've focused a lot on sharing data, particularly with our local data dashboard. Data is an important piece of telling the story, and it still will be an important piece of our messaging, but we need to look beyond that data because each one of these data points is a person in our community. As crucial as it is, people don't relate with data, they relate with other people. So we will focus more on more of a people-centered approach to our communication. Additionally, we will continue to focus on making information easier to find and understand. We will double the frequency with which we communicate, and we will expand our reach to a larger audience through the content that we're creating and through potential paid promotion. We will leverage live and recorded video as a more engaging way to share information. This can include short animated videos providing information about testing, answering questions, and talking about general issues about COVID-19. We can create short videos and interviews showing what a day in the life of public health looks like, and then provide regular presentations explaining local data and COVID-19 situation in our county. We will leverage direct mail to reach a larger audience. We want to focus on reaching as many people as we can. And some people aren't on social media, they don't go on there regularly. So we want to make sure that we're getting information into the hands of the people who need it, who may not be on our channels currently. We will also continue to collect feedback and foster community engagement through pulse surveys and potential listening sessions. The feedback that we receive and the feedback that we have received will help inform where we need to focus our resources with communication. These objectives will evolve over time as we learn about COVID-19 and our community. They're not magically going to make everyone agree on everything all the time. It would be wonderful if we could do that, but it's not going to happen. So we want to use this communication as a tool to better share information, create a dialogue, and hopefully bring people together for the health of our community. So that was a general overview of what the communications plan has to offer. If anybody has any questions, feel free to ask, and I will answer to the best of my ability.
Supervisors, questions? Apparently
Judy
not.
Arcroft has, of course.
Go ahead, Judy.
Okay. Well, one is a statement that no matter what you do, you're never going to reach everyone.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And my other question is, and I just thought of it while you were talking, so I don't know if I'm going to phrase it right. How can you communicate where you're getting your information and why that is what you feel is the best and most accurate compared to where other places that other people are getting their information and they feel that is the best and the most accurate? How do you handle the discrepancy? Or how do you see the best way of handling that?
Yep, and that's a very good question. It's a complicated issue because there is so much information out there from varying sources. Not all of it is consistent. We have been very consistent in the information that we've shared and the sources that we pull from. We always pulled from St. Croix County Public Health, and they follow guidance from the Wisconsin Department of Health Services and the CDC. So those are anytime that we're putting out a communication, that communication is really in alignment with the recommendations of those three. We do recognize that people are getting information from other sources. We are going to make an attempt to do a better job to understand what information is coming out of those sources, so we can see how maybe that does align or maybe that does conflict with the information that we're putting out, and do our best to just kind of navigate those waters. I'm sorry, it's not a great answer to your question, but it gives you a little bit of insight into where our information is coming from. We do recognize that there is an issue and we are working toward it. I just don't have, there's not really a playbook to handle COVID-19 like this. So.
No, but no matter what you're dealing with, as long as there's some attempt to try and this won't be coming out right, meet or understand where other people are coming from without it overwhelming you, so that we have hopefully less tension and friction with whatever happens in the future.
Yep, and that's where that community engagement piece comes in, where we're talking about the pulse surveys to really get a feel for what people are feeling within the county. And we can gauge that over time. And then I put in potential listening sessions. We're working through the logistics of that, but that's really where you could bring in people from opposing viewpoints or differing viewpoints, I should say, and really kind of get to the heart of what issues are important to them and help factor that into the communication. It doesn't necessarily mean that just because somebody has a differing viewpoint that our messaging is going to change, but at least acknowledging that and looking at ways where we can factor that into our communication to move forward.
Supervisor Hall?
Yeah, just a suggestion or a question. Would it be possible to put links into the source data that you're using in the communications? That way people can go back and do a deeper dive if they're interested in the source of that information?
Yes, that is an option that we can do, and I intend to employ.
Thank you.
Okay, Supervisor Burning?
For a technology guy, I had a hard time finding the unmute button. So I echo what Supervisor Hall said. I actually just crossed that off. The sources would be very important. So Adam, if you could do that, that'd be awesome. Also, if we're going to consider, or if we're doing a lot more direct mailers, I'm assuming you have a budget set for that. But if we want to do even more, how's that going to play out budget wise? Because I know direct mail is not cheap. But it can be effective. So if you could speak to that, that would be fantastic. And then before I let you answer that question, do we have money left over, or has the state got any money from COVID relief that we could utilize to help with that communication? So I'll let you take it away, Adam. Thank you.
Okay. From the budgeting standpoint, I'll let Ken speak to that. We are working on figuring out the budgeting piece of this currently. So I'm sorry, I don't have those numbers directly available. As far as how we would handle direct mail, it's not going to be weekly mailers. It's going to be maybe a couple different campaigns that we would send out to inform people about major changes that are coming up. And we would look at, again, not using that regularly, but using it sparingly. And then when you factor that into the paid promotion, the online paid promotion that we're looking into, we're really looking at starting small, seeing what's working, and then growing that forward. So trying our best to measure the results of this and determine what's working and what's not working.
Supervisor Leaf?
I would also say, Adam, great job. The other thing you could look at is leveraging other communications or other direct mail pieces that are going to households already. There are several things that I know that we get that go to every county resident, so you could leverage some of those as well with your messaging too, as a way to help us with budget.
I appreciate that. Thank you, Kathy.
Ken, did you want to cover the budget portion of that?
If you would like me to. So my job is to gauge what the county board wants and then figure out a way of making that happen. So I can assure you, Supervisor Burning, that if direct mailings is what the county board wants, direct mailings, we will find the money to do those. So it really, out of a $104 million budget, a direct mailing is not that large of a percentage of that budget. So we will find the resources to do it. There are not any current routes to recovery grant monies available anymore. All of that money has been spent. So we would be finding money elsewhere already designated in the budget for special projects.
Thank you, Ken. Further questions? Comments? Seeing none, we'll proceed on with the business items. And as soon as I can see again, the county administrator's financial report.
Thank you, Chairman Peterson. So the financial report is in your packet. If you have any detailed questions, we do have our interim finance director here. She can answer all of those. What you won't necessarily see in this report, though, that I did want to point out, we're on track budget-wise for the year through October. We look like we'll finish similar to where we have in prior years in the black, and thanks to continued strong sales tax growth. The Routes to Recovery grant that I just mentioned, that was fully submitted. We had $1.48 million that was available through that Routes to Recovery. We submitted everything in full plus about $200,000 in excess of that. So we ended up with additional expenses. The last report I heard, which was just yesterday, very preliminary numbers from the state, they had $22 million left over from the initial allocations. So there's a chance that we're going to get potentially some of that money still recouped through the Routes to Recovery. The other thing I'm going to point out, and not that I'm going to recommend it, but in full disclosure, there is a provision in the state law and the expenditure restraint, the revenue limits that we have, that allows you to recoup unreimbursed expenses that are due to a declaration of emergency. So the state's declaration of emergency opens that up. So out of that 1.6 million we spent, anything that we did not recoup through a grant would be eligible to add to the tax levy in the year of the expense or the year after the expense. So we've already set this year's, but next year's. So we didn't get reimbursed for that $200,000, or if we ended up with additional expenses for mailings, we could technically add that to the tax levy. That seems sort of contradictory to what you guys had just done with this budget, where you use cash to buy the levy down. So that's not something that I'm going to recommend next year. But in full disclosure, I did want to at least explain that that is an option that's out there, so that you know it, I know it, not that it's probably something that's going to come to fruition, but full disclosure. Are there any specific questions, though, on the financial report that you would like answered?
Judy Ochteroff.
Go ahead, Supervisor Achterhoff.
I just have one. On page 42, under expenses, general, the very first one, it says unallocated, but we had over 3 million one year, over 3 million the next year, and then this year we didn't allocate anything and we are almost at 2 million. How come we had 2 years of 3 million of expenses and then this year we didn't allocate anything and we're almost at 2 million?
Yeah, so that default account, what happens with that account is it ends up being budget transfers. So when we transfer additional monies over to the capital improvement, we don't plan for that, we don't budget that for the year, but when that ends up happening, this is one of those line items that is affected by that. This is actually on the revenue side, though. This would be, I'm going to double check real quick. I'm thinking this might be the refinancing, the debt refinancing we did earlier in the year. Yeah, we don't have a separate debt line. So that's that revenue line item is the debt. But when you see those numbers in default, those are the two things that go into that default, because we don't have a specific cost category. When we move money from one fund to another fund, it still has to show somewhere, though. And when we refinance debt, we don't typically plan on that. We don't know that interest rates are going to drop and that we're going to do a refinancing. So those are the two items that end up in those default accounts.
So would you say that in the years, oh God, I have to go up to where the, 2018 and 19, where we had over 3 million, was it budgeted for 0 and then we ended out with over 3 million? Or did we have some kind of budget in there?
No, that line item will always be budgeted at 0.
Oh, okay, thanks.
Further questions? Okay, seeing none, I guess we're ready then to move on to the report to the administrator on the use of emergency authority under the resolution. Ken?
Coincidental that it's also on the agenda today. But let me get to the right page. Yeah. So under the declaration that we have, it grants the county administrator additional authority to amend our policies related to COVID-related issues that we have. So in November, after discussing with Human Resources and Corp Counsel, I made an exception to the use of our long-term sick leave bank. The federal government created these rules where we can use different types of leaves for different scenarios. One of the scenarios, though, that we found there was a gap in is when you have a child that is required to stay home because the school's closed. There's some leaves that are available, but one of the exceptions that we made was the use of our long-term sick bank to cover those hours also. So that's an exception to our policy. And then the other one was an extension of the additional pay for, it should say public health employees from October 18th until the end of the year. There was additional grant monies that were still available out of their pot of the CARES grant funding. So we were able to extend that program for the additional hours that staff has. So those are the two exceptions I made. Under the resolution, I have to report whenever I make these exceptions for you, because this is your opportunity to say, wait, stop, we don't want that to go on. So that's your chance right now.
Questions, comments? Supervisor Achterhoff?
As usual. My concern is with that long-term sick leave bank, because what happens when they use it up? Or what happens after this COVID, like in 21? Well, yeah, does that carry over? Some of that carries over, correct?
Are you asking about the
long-term sick leave bank that people have?
Yeah.
Does that carry over from year to year?
It does, yes.
Okay, but so what happens when they use it all up, let's say in the year 2021, and this COVID stuff is all over and done with, if that ever really happens, but they've used up all their long-term sick leave bank and something else happens in their family? What options do they have? And are we going to be able to look back and say, hey, COVID used up a bunch of these, so we should not penalize them for something that they can't do anything about?
Yeah, the county provides multiple avenues of time off available to employees. They have, generally speaking, their PTO is the first option, and then they have long-term sick leave bank as a backup for when they've had excess hours. They voluntarily transferred hours into that long-term sick leave bank. Both of those do have a long-term liability for the county. Those are on our books as a liability. For the employee, those are the options that we've presented. Once they've exhausted all of those, they do go on to an unpaid status. So there isn't a backup, per your question, there isn't a backup beyond that. Those are the options that we currently provide for employees.
I would like something looked at, because I just know that, I mean, I don't work, thank goodness, but my husband had COVID, so I was stuck at home for 2 weeks for his quarantine, and then I was home for another 2 weeks for my own personal quarantine in case I got it the very last day. That's 1 month that I would have been unable to work if I'd had a job. And let's say I had kids, and then a month later, one of them came home from school. I mean, this can just add on and on and on. And it's not the employee's fault. I think that we should seriously look at something to help them in this situation where when they get it down to they're just not getting paid, that's not right.
Further questions, comments? Supervisor Hall?
Not to solve the problem in this meeting, but if we do investigate this, and I think we should, then what are the options? I mean, would there be an option to purchase extra insurance in this case that the employee could contribute to, or the employees could contribute to extend benefits, or are we self-insured and that's not an option?
Yeah, I don't think it's necessarily a health insurance related. We are self-insured for our health insurance. It becomes a payroll issue. So if you've exhausted all of the time off that we've given you and you need additional time off, that's a payroll cost. That's where that expense comes from. The other thing I was going to point out for Judy's question is we do have a large portion of our workforce that is available to work from home. And so, I mean, a lot of the employees, even if they are quarantined, they're still healthy enough and capable of working from home, and we allow that in many of those situations. So we're trying to make the best of everything that we have right now. But to your question specifically, there is a point where it does all run out.
And that's just not, let's say you're, working in the kitchen in the jail. That's not something you can do from home. And I really seriously think we should see what options there are and what other areas maybe have done in that situation, because I think that's important, especially for staff morale.
All right. Thank you, Supervisor Achterhoff.
Supervisor Burning.
So I remember at the beginning when this whole thing was happening, there were relaxations in unemployment benefits for people that had to quarantine. And I know a couple of people that applied for them or that quarantined themselves because of the risk factor. And is that still an option? I guess I would say that would probably be our first go-to for folks instead of us expending a whole bunch of more capital. But is that an option, Ken? Is that still relaxed?
The initial $600 extra per week had expired. I think by executive order, the president had extended $300 a week until the funds run out. I really don't know the status of that executive order. But I think it's back down to regular unemployment at this point. Really, the big question is the federal government going to do another stimulus bill? The FICRA leaves that are in place right now also run out at the end of the calendar year. So those are all ending at the end of this month. So really, the bigger question, and I need to talk to my staff about this yet, is what are we going to do if the federal government doesn't extend those?
Yeah, and I guess just to add to that, so I guess that didn't answer my question exactly, but maybe we can look at a way of helping them keep their benefits and being able to collect a paycheck, but also talking about maybe other employees helping pool in days to help their fellow employee. If there's some sort of way to relax that, like for instance, if for the company I work for, if I had a bunch of sick bank up and I had a coworker who needed to take a month off or 2 months off due to COVID, and I could help contribute 2 or 3 of my days and ask other employees to do that. I mean, I don't know what the laws are around benefits like that, but I think that could help rather than just grabbing money and throwing it out there for just one person. I think as a team, you'll see that people will be willing to step up and donate a day or two of their sick bank. That's an idea, but I think if anything, we should explore the probability of keeping their benefits in place, but being able to collect unemployment and just not denying their unemployment claim if we can't pay them anymore, or people run out of sick days or whatever. So just some ideas that I'm throwing out there, but I do remember that people could, if they were at a risk factor, not work, collect unemployment. Yes, at the time they had the $600. But anyway, just my 2 cents or 1 cent or whatever it's worth.
Supervisor Cook, I believe you.
I agree with Supervisor Achterhoff's concerns, and based on the conversation, does it make sense for us to refer this discussion to maybe administration or another committee so we can look into it further?
Okay, Bob, we'll refer that to you for a look-see. Anybody else? Okay, I guess we've resolved that for the time being, and so we'll move on then to the, thank you, Ken, On to the business items, and the item is a resolution extending the COVID-19 emergency declaration for the administrator. Supervisor Long, it's your, and Supervisor Asness seconds. Discussion.
Thank you, Chair Peterson. The resolution that we have for the declaration of emergency, I just wanted to, clarify how this is different than, the state one. So the state declaration of emergency is addressing the public. Our declaration of emergency is granting the county administrator additional authority to modify policies. And if you can see the policies that were just talked about that had been modified and maybe still need to be modified, it's internal, it's employee related. So our declaration of emergency is about how we're running the organization, not what's happening outside of the walls of the county government. So I just wanted to clarify the difference there in this declaration. It is set to expire at the end of the year. And as we just talked about, some of the federal FICRA leaves are expiring at the end of the year. And what we do with employees after January 1 is probably going to be a big question yet. And so that's one of the areas that we'll probably continue to look at under this authority. And your remote attendance is by this also.
Correct me if I'm wrong, but I think also by declaring that we also would be in line for additional CARES money or whatever that might come out.
No, this doesn't apply to any of the grants that are available. Having this or not having this does not affect the ability to receive any grants.
Questions, comments? Okay, then I believe we're ready to vote on the resolution which would extend the COVID-19 declaration, and that would be until when was that, Ken?
It was a 6-month extension.
6-month extension, okay. Okay, we'll vote at this time then. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye.
Aye. Aye.
Opposed? Carries unanimously, thank you. Request for future agenda items. Oh, I'm sorry. Skipped right over those annual reports. District Attorney and Victim Witness Annual Report. Mr. Neski's going to handle that.
I'm here to handle it, Mr. Chair.
Go ahead. Thank you, Mike.
Briefly, you have our report. The only thing that's really changed from when this was submitted is, of course, our case numbers are up. We're about at 830 felonies for the year, 930 misdemeanors, a few more traffic, a few more juveniles. We have significant changes that we've made this year, particularly because of COVID. We've gone paperless, which caused us to scan a lot of files, a lot of extra work in the office in terms of that. But generally, the office has been running well. We've been able to do much of our work remotely. The courts have just gone back to a system where they've canceled jury trials for the next 60 days at least, and probably longer than that. There are certain elements of our jobs we can't do that we're working on trying to do remotely. But this time, what you see is, I think, an effective and efficient office. I do have a hearing in a couple of minutes, so if there's any questions from the board, I'd like to address them quickly.
Questions, comments from the board? I see none. Okay, thank you, Michael. I appreciate it.
Thank you. I'll be leaving it because I have a reckless homicide hearing set at 9:30 before Judge Black. Have a nice day, gentlemen and ladies.
Okay, our next item then would be Child Support Annual Department Report. And Lisa, are you online?
Yes, I am. Can you hear me?
Go ahead. Thank you. Yes.
So I'll try to be brief here. The Child Support Agency is here to help families become self-sufficient by establishing and enforcing child support orders. I won't go through the summary of responsibilities or the program summary. I'll get right down to the nitty-gritty. Our goals and objectives achieved this year, we exceeded the child support contract performance measures. We met all 4 performance measures for this fiscal year. This was last achieved in 2016. This was accomplished by the hard work of our staff, Chad Wolski and Gretchen Murado. They're child support specialists too. They are like lead workers. Heather Jensen, Sherry Martinson, Pascal Diebetter, Raquel Freibert, they're child support specialist 1s, and they do paternity, establish, and enforcement. Jessica Wheeler is our child support service customer representative. We also successfully piloted a work program, Crossroads for Success. We collaborate with the Workforce Resource Center through St. Croix County and other counties, border counties, or other states' work programs to get participants involved in an opportunity to gain employment, education, financial assistance, and things like that. We have one specialist, Heather Jensen, who, with her hard work and commitment, she did this program on her own. And we had, out of 13, I believe we had 4 or 5 individuals that are now still continuing to pay their support. And the other participants are still working with Workforce Resource. We are in a process of scanning all of our files into our electronic case filing system. Hopefully we can get that accomplished by December 31st. I think we have about 780 cases left. This is due to the hard work of our front desk caseworker, our customer service representative, Jessica Wheeler. All other staff are doing as much as they can on top of their regular casework. Our department budget status, we're ahead of the game. The other thing that I would like to mention is we still participate on multiple state and county committees. We continue to contract with Buffalo County for the child support coordination services. I, as the administrator, generate revenue by doing their Buffalo and Pepin County child support coordinating work, which Pepin County did for the first time ever meet all 4 performance measures in that county. Buffalo County had only met 2 of the 4, but we're working on that. The issues and concerns and restraints relating to COVID-19, we had to modify our administrative enforcement, and we continue to modify the processes and procedures during the pandemic. We are consistently continuing to discuss our best practices and procedures, working closely with Corp Counsel and the courts and the clerk of courts to get that accomplished. Staff work remotely most of the time. They do come in for their hearings and office coverage, but I'm not sure if that's going to continue depending on what the court decides to do about in-person. Most of the staff may be working remotely, which we can do effectively and efficiently. We did have a goal and objective for this year to create a child support early intervention chronic offenders program with Judge Black. That is postponed during this COVID pandemic. Hopefully we can get to that by next year. My new goal would be to encourage employee engagement and increase customer service performance. The pandemic has enlightened us in a way we conduct our business. Our agency will be discussing employee engagement during the coming year. We will investigate our agency's mission and vision and lay the groundwork for our future. We also are going to be expanding our Crossroads to Success program to custodial parents. So parents that are not paying support but aren't able to work can get into this program and get additional assistance for employment opportunities and financial help. The one last thing is last year, County Supervisor Judy Ochterhoff had inquired on the cost effectiveness of our online payment service, which was GovPayNet and now is called AllPaid. Her concern was the parties or parents that are paying for this, using this service, there's a fee charged, and was it effective, given the limited opportunity of having payments that don't charge fees. We created a payment method packet for paying parents, giving them all their options to make payments so they can have all the information available. So they can pay for no fee. They can pay by check, income withholding to the employer, expert pay, which is a service done by our Wisconsin Trust Fund. They can pay by phone. They can do bill pay through their bank checking or savings account, or they could come in the office to make a cash payment or a payment by check. Those do not charge fees. The online services such as eChild's Pay, All Paid, and MoneyGram do charge fees. These are this is available to them in case they don't have any other option to make a payment. And at this time, the state does not have any online option available that is at no cost or low cost. Hopefully, when we move into our next technology generation, that will be available. Are there any questions?
Question or comments, supervisors? Seeing none, thank you. Lisa?
Thank you.
Okay, we'll move on then to the medical examiner's annual report. Ken, who's going to cover? Okay.
Yeah, I don't see the medical examiner online or in the room, but her report is in the packet for your review. If you have any questions, I'm sure Patty would be happy to answer them via email.
Okay, I guess that then.
Well, I've got one thing, Judy Acroft, is I will have to say that due to Patty, we have gotten some national recognition because of some of the things that she's been doing. And I want to thank her for that. So, because I know she's been in papers out east, and she was just on national news the other night. So she's done a tremendous job, and I want to extend my gratitude.
Okay, I guess we're ready then to move on. Request for future agenda items.
Judy Artroff again. Broadband. I would like to know what's happening with that, because it seems like we talk about it and then it disappears, and there may be committees, but to one extent, I'd like to be kept up to date almost monthly with what's going on, because I don't want these big companies to think that we forgot about it, because it's vital. And if we want St. Croix County to grow, especially if they start doing a lot more online business, this is vital for the future of our county. So I would like broadband definitely discussed next time.
Administrator Witt has taken note of that, and I'm sure he'll address that next time. Other agenda items. Supervisor Burning.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Yes, I would request maybe that we have some sort of committee forms underneath admin to look at that. I would appreciate being part of that with my technology and telecom background. But if we could explore something like that, because I agree with Supervisor Achterhoff on that. Put it in the books.
We'll address that also. Other agenda items. Supervisor Fiedler.
Mr. Chairman, I had a nice opportunity to discuss with the mayor of Hudson, Rich O'Connor, an idea that's personal to him. It's not the city of Hudson and not in his probably official duties or that of their council, but he's pushing very hard to create a very friendly, thoughtful, courteous atmosphere in the county, and particularly in the city of Hudson. And he calls it the Golden Rule Initiative. And we're all familiar with the Golden Rule. And I thought his discussion with me was just very, very thoughtful and helpful. And I would just urge that we invite the mayor of Hudson to be with us at our next meeting to have him discuss that initiative, what he hopes to do with it, and what role the county might have in perhaps assisting him in that initiative. I have a second thing. I would like to have at some point in the future a discussion about what we might be doing with regard to strategic planning and that sort of thing. Thank you.
Okay, we have a notation on that, and I think the Hudson issue would probably be discussion at the admin committee would be probably. Okay, that's fine. Any others? Someone had a comment up there who wanted to speak?
Yes, Chairman, this is Lisa Plunder from the Child Support Agency again.
Go ahead,
I
Lisa.
mistakenly left Mel Bowman off of my list of child support specialists. She's one of our highest performers in our office, and she is also on our staff advisory committee. I do not know how she missed my list. Thank you for letting me announce that.
You're welcome, thank you. Supervisor Counter.
Thank you, Chairman. I also just wanted to see if in our future meetings we'd consider giving some time to our St. Croix County health officer to give us COVID updates.
Okay, we'll put that on the agenda, Ken. Okay, thank you. Anybody else? Seeing no others, then next thing would be county clerk's report and correspondence.
I have no correspondence. I have nothing to report other than Cedar Corp provides these pocket calendars every year for board members. So if you're interested, pick one up. If you're remotely, let me know and I can put it in your mailbox. Thanks.
Be sure and save one for Buck. Next thing would be announcements, Ken. Okay, I'd like to take this opportunity then to wish all my fellow supervisors a happy and safe holiday season and a Merry Christmas, and we'll see you all next year, if not before. And at that, I'll adjourn the meeting at 9:42. Thank you.